you never have peace while you're in the church. Like, they tell you when you first come into the church, the spill is you're a sinner, you try to kill God in heaven, you're not saved, you need to keep the Passover. If you keep the Passover, you're forgiven of your sins, you feel of God, you're saved, you're good. You're so good. If you keep the Passover, you're good, you're saved, you can sleep like a baby tonight because you're going to heaven. But what happens is, after you keep Passover, you go back for another study. Now it went from you being saved after keeping Passover. Yeah, well, you kept Passover, that's good. But did you know you need to keep the Sabbath? The Sabbath is on Saturday, and if you don't keep the Sabbath, you don't have a sign between you and God. And so it turns from doing one thing and you're good to doing another and another, and it just keeps adding on and adding on and adding on until it consumes you. And it's never enough. It's never enough. You never feel, even after doing all these things, you never feel peace.
So about 4 years ago, I sat down in a conversation for the very first time with a World Mission Society Church of God member. And that conversation was less of a conversation, more of a pretty heated and intense debate where I, myself and my brother-in-law Jesse, pretty intensely debated, going back and forth over Bible verses, and this guy was really passionate, really zealous for the Church of God doctrine. This individual who we had that conversation with, his name is Edgar. And just so happens that today he is the one that I am interviewing. And so Edgar, after being in this cult for 11 years, around 11 years, he's come out and he is wanting to share his story. He's wanting to talk and to help others come out of this group by making videos like this one. And so this is a pretty significant video in my opinion. In many ways, that conversation with Edgar led to basically what we've been doing on the channel for the past several years. It was really that conversation that kind of stirred up in me this desire to study the group more and to really try to figure out how I can respond to them and help people to escape that group. So yeah, I'm really excited for you to meet Edgar and to hear some of his story, and he's got just a lot of stuff to share, and this will be, I'm sure, the first of many videos that he will be on with us. Before you hear the interview though, there's a few things I wanted to cover. One thing, I just wanted to give a quick thanks to several people who have joined our Patreon support list in the past handful of months. So Kelsey has joined our Patreon monthly supporters, and then there's Kathy Cromwell, and then one whose name just shows up as Survivor. But these three have jumped on. It's been in the past year, but in 2021, these are some of our new patrons, and just wanted to acknowledge them and say thank you to them and everyone else who has joined our Patreon community. I want to do more videos. I want to be able to spend more time doing this. This could be, this really could be, I think, more and more almost a full-time thing between talking to members in emails and phone conversations that I'm having. And we get so many people reaching out to us wanting to talk, wanting to ask questions, and just a whole variety of opportunities there. All of you who have joined our Patreon community, that really helps to supply for all of those things. And so I want to do something actually special over the next month where if you haven't seen, we've made some t-shirts, some merch for Great Light Studios, and several shirts related to the World Mission Society Church of God. I'll pull up some pictures right now so you can see some of those, and I'll keep adding designs in the future. But what I want to do is for the next 5 people, we'll say the next 5 people who join our Patreon monthly support, we're going to send a free t-shirt to all those who join. And so And also to those who recently have already joined, we'll go ahead and send you a t-shirt as well. And so we can get a hold of all of you who join and let you pick whichever design you want and the size and all that. So with all that said, I'm really excited for you to meet Edgar and to hear his story.
Well, Edgar, thank you for coming on tonight. This is kind of a big moment right now, I feel like, because as I've talked to Jesse about in the past, in many ways, the videos we've been making on Great Light Studios about the World Mission Society Church of God, it's kind of your fault that we've been making these videos for the past handful of years, because it was, I can't remember how many years ago it was. I think it was 2017, maybe 2018 when we first met. And so you were still a member of the Church of God at that point, and you ran into Jesse at a park in Wichita, and you guys were preaching to him. And then he ended up setting up, I think he set up a meeting with you guys to meet later on and study the Bible. And I ended up coming with Jesse to that. And so it was, a Bible study / like my first debate with World Mission Society Church of God members. And obviously one of those was you. And so when I say this is kind of your fault, what I mean is that it really, after that conversation with you, it kind of put a spark in me and Jesse to want to dig into this group a little bit more and understand how you guys thought and what your doctrines were, and really to figure out how do we reply and respond to these guys. And so after meeting you, the rest is kind of history. And so that's why we say it's kind of your fault. And so it's really cool though, now that we're sitting here about to have the kind of conversation that we're going to have. So this is pretty exciting, I think, for both of us.
Yes, sir. First of all, thanks for having me, Jordan. This has been a long time in coming. And yeah, man, I'm excited. If you would have told me all those years ago that I would be sitting here doing exactly what I'm doing now, I would tell you that, I would tell you you're crazy. I'd be like, no way, yep, man, I'm going to be in Zion till, the last moment. And, yep, all the things that I was, believing in at that time. And so, yeah, this is a very big deal for me, too, because, like, I'm so anxious to share everything that's on my heart, and I can't contain, all the things that I have. And I've been waiting for this for a very long time. But so I think it'd be probably best to start from the beginning, kind of give a little background.
Yeah, and also I wanted to mention that not only I think is this conversation significant because of those, you are, the first World Mission Society Church of God member, really, that I had real interactions with, and that kind of started, again, put this spark in me and Jesse to do all this, but also for those who have been following along on the channel and watch some of our live stream videos, you are one of the members that came on at one point. I think is when it was me and Kelsey, and I think Jeremy Burgos was on that live stream, and we were inviting current members to come on and talk with us, and you jumped on under the name Watchman.
I don't know if you had a way to just explain that. Well, sorry, I'm kind of rambling. What I'm trying to say is I don't understand why it has to be so complicated. Like, why does it have to be so complicated? And how can we know anything about the Bible if a simple verse like that is so complex and complicated? I don't feel like we can know anything about the Bible.
Well, that's a problem, because the Bible, who said the Bible was that easy to understand? I mean, I literally mentioned Matthew chapter 13, where Jesus Christ said, I speak in parables to reveal secrets of the kingdom of heaven given to you, not to them. And
so we had a little debate there as well, and you debated Jeremy a little bit. And so So it's just it's cool that some of that your history as a member is actually recorded in past videos on the channel, and now people can see, you know, your face and see that you've come out and you got a much different story to tell at this point. And so, yeah, it's just I'm super excited to hear your story. I just think this is a really cool a cool moment. It's just encouraging because, like, kind of like you said, if you had told me, you know, several years ago that one day that guy Edgar that I sat across and debated with, you know, for 2 hours, and then we had another meeting after that one day Edgar would be on a video, you know, helping me to destroy the Church of God. Like, I would have thought they were crazy too. It was kind of this dream that me and Jesse had that it would happen eventually, that you know, we would have a conversation like this, that you would come out of the group, and yeah, this is just super cool that it's actually happened. So with that, I ideally, you know, this conversation, we talked about going to that coffee shop in Wichita where we first met, and having Jesse there and doing the video there. That didn't work out so with schedules, and this was just an easier way to do it. But yeah, right. Jesse definitely would say hi, and is super stoked about where you're at, that you're here telling your story. So yeah, I think let's start at the beginning. And one question though I wanted to ask about kind of that initial meeting was just, I'm just curious, what kind of was your impression, if you can think back that far, of like me and Jesse, and sort of that conversation as a whole? Like, what, looking back on that now, like what were your thoughts about us? How did you process that conversation? Did that have any kind of impact on you when we debated, and we threw verses at you threw verses at us, and we sent you home with challenges to, you know, go and read about this and study this, and you did the same for us. So kind of what were your initial thoughts about us in that conversation?
Yeah, so, you know, when I first met you guys, you know, when well, the first meeting we actually had somewhere in the coffee shop, where we were able to sit down and we knew what we were going for. You know, when we started talking, honestly, like to me, it was just like another day in the park. I was thinking, you know, I'm gonna run to some, you know, Christians. I had been, you know, they kind of trained me to, you know, they would always put me to study with, you know, the leaders of different churches. You know, I've studied with Seventh-day Adventist elders, and, you know, Jehovah's Witness, and, you know, Hebrew Israelites, and a lot of Christians, a lot of Christians, a lot of, you know, pastors and youth pastors. So when I met you guys, I was kind of thinking like, okay, so, you know, it's kind of going to be the same thing. And at that time when we met up at the coffee shop, and you know, we're going back and forth, man. We're going back and forth, and you know, there was yeah, especially when we were talking about, you know, let's say like the Sabbath, you know, and we're talking about the Sabbath, and I'm going to, well, if you remember at the time I was with the deacon. And when I had gone with the deacon, which I care a lot about, man, I'm praying for him. I'm hoping he comes out. But when me and the deacon were there, and we were we were debating you guys, and we get to the Sabbath, and, you know, I see him going to a lot of the verses that we usually go to the, you know, Sabbath about, and you know, you brought up Romans chapter 14, I believe. Yeah, and so, you know, when you brought that one up, you know, obviously it made me think, you know, like I hadn't heard that verse before. I had heard Colossians chapter 2, but I hadn't heard Romans chapter 14. But I'm not going to lie, like at that time when I heard it, I was like, well, I've never seen this verse. Interesting. But it wasn't enough to, like, I still felt that, you know, and that we had the truth, and that, you know, the Sabbath was something that was mandatory because of all the knowledge that I had the Old Testament and what the Old Testament says about the Sabbath, and then the couple of verses that I had a misunderstanding about in the New Testament that mentions the Sabbath. I'm thinking these apply now. So, with all that being said, I still it didn't really shake my faith at that time, because even if you remember, we kind of left off in the book of Daniel. That was always my go-to is, when push comes to shove, let's go to the book of Daniel. And and we kind of left off at there, giving each other different homework. But I will say that I did, I didn't expect what's happening now to happen, but I don't know, something felt different, something really did feel different. And then we kind of stay connected, even through after that, and by whatever means, really.
We had a round two at one point. I think at McDonald's we had sort of another time that we met up and we got into
See that time I was I think you guys had gone to the church. And
yes, that was the day we got kicked out. That was the day that the deacon had kicked us out. Yeah, because we came into the church. We were down in the basement, having some conversations, and so I think that was that same day. That was the day that deacon came and saw us in there, and he got this very angry look on his face, which I can kind of understand. And he made us leave, and then several of you guys followed us out, and you were kind of like, I don't think that was, he shouldn't have done that. He shouldn't have kicked you out. Let's go meet up and talk. And so then we went and we had another conversation at McDonald's. So, and I don't remember that conversation as well, but I do remember that it was you and I think 3 other members.
Yeah, so it was two other members. The thing was, though, it's a little bit different. When you had gone that day, I wasn't aware that you guys had shown up and that the deacon had kicked you out until the very end. I think I was walking outside, and that's when one of the members had mentioned that you guys had been there, and one of the members had told me, hey, I'm going with them to basically show them the truth. And then another one of the members was like, yeah, I'm gonna go too. And they were like, please come. And I was telling them, I was like, hey, I don't know what deacon told you guys, or what's going on right now, but I think you guys should just stay back. And they're like, no, we're gonna do this, and we're gonna we're committed to showing them. And so I was like, okay, you know what, let's go with you guys. And so that's when we went to McDonald's, and again, it was agree to disagree. We basically were just going back and forth, and so yeah, man, we have some
history,
some battles. Yeah.
Yes. Well, it was fun, and you definitely gave us a run for our money in those conversations, and you made us go away and have to think and have to look into stuff more. One thing, though, that I think stands out to me about you still when I think about those conversations is that you were I feel like you listened to what we said, and you were thoughtful enough to, like, if we had a good point, you wouldn't just continue to, like, try to yammer on as like your World Mission Society, Church of God, your doctrines and the things that most members have this rehearsed thing that they say, and it doesn't matter what you say, they're just going to go as quickly as they can back to that rehearsed speech that they want to give. You can just tell they're not thinking about, you can make the most obvious, evidence-backed, rational argument that clearly proves to be or is a problem for their doctrine, and you can tell they just don't think about it. They're not really there to listen or to hear the other side. They're just there to talk and to share that kind of rehearsed speech that they've learned. And so, but with you, I feel like when we made certain points, you would listen, and I could tell that you would actually think about what we were saying, rather than you just trying to figure out how you can, get your chance to talk again and continue on with your, rehearsed speech. And so that's something I still to this day appreciate about how you handled yourself, because I think so many members that I talk to, that is not the case at all. Like it's so hard for so many members. It's very difficult to have like a rational, intelligent conversation with them, because they just don't really know how to have a conversation, like a back and forth dialogue. They just know how to give their rehearsed speech. And so, I just appreciate that about you. And I hope that people, even other members, can learn, should be learning from people like you who actually know how to engage in rational conversation.
Yeah, so actually, it's really crazy, because when I would talk to people different religions, different beliefs, Christians, like Jehovah's, everyone, I always would mention something to them. I would always say, I'm not here to, I want to hear you out too. And I always meant that, because I feel that I've always valued truth. Like, and I'm not scared of truth. Like, ultimately, I want to know that whatever I'm following is correct, especially if I'm gonna, if I'm placing my soul on the line. I want to, and my families and my loved ones, I want to be 100% sure that, this is truth. And so, one of the reasons why I love to hear people out is because, and I used to tell people all the time, I'm pretty sure I mentioned it to you guys, like, if you guys can prove to me that what I'm following is not truth, and you can show me what is truth, I will not be afraid to leave my church. And and look, I'm here right now, and
you put your money where your mouth is.
Exactly. And I give glory to God, because it took a lot of different things to happen in my life, and just hearing people out. And even when I was in the church, I used to always listen to, Christian, preachers, and apologists, and I never closed my mind to things. Mm-hmm. Of course, there would be some times that I would listen to, certain people, and I would be like, wow, that makes sense, but they wouldn't go, in line with what I believed. I would try to find a way to make sense of it, or try to kind of put it in the back burner, for the moment.
Yep.
And but yeah, man, it's crazy, man.
So was there anything in that conversation that you can remember that me or Jesse either said or did that you feel like made an impact? And I guess the reason I'm asking is because, I want to learn from both mistakes and, ways that have worked, things that I've done well. And so I have just been curious, like, is there anything that you remember in that conversation? I know you kind of mentioned Romans 14, that we brought up that passage, but just for future reference, and for those listening now who want to know how to better engage with members, was there anything that we did that either you feel like was helpful and effective, or maybe that was not effective and not helpful, and would be maybe something to avoid in the future?
So, obviously now that, we're in the present looking at it in hindsight, like, I think that there's definitely a lot of things that you guys did right. One of them being very patient, and, and also hearing us out. because there's also, just like how we, a lot of the members in the church are closed-minded and don't hear everybody's, arguments and just want to shut it down right away without even considering what the other person, mentioned. You guys were actually listening to us, trying to, understand, and even the proof is in the pudding, right? You guys were like even saying, hey, we're gonna go home and we're gonna study this. We're gonna give you an answer for the questions that I asked. And to me, I appreciated that as well, because it made me think, okay, I'm not just wasting my time. We're not just arguing. I'm listening to them and they're listening to me. And, another thing is that, really like the humility. I think that, that's one thing I've been seeing in a lot of like Christians that, in the past I overlooked, or I looked at it as a sign of weakness. But really the humility that you guys show, even sometimes with, even to be able to say, I don't know everything, or, let me come back to that, and, that's rare in the Church of God. In the Church of God, you ask a leader, you ask an overseer a question, and it's like, if they don't know how to answer it, it's either, hey, you need to study the Green Book more, or you didn't understand, brother, or
they put it back on you, yeah.
Exactly. And so, but, one of the things that I will say that I really appreciate, I forgot to mention, is the fact when we were talking about kind of like prophecy. I don't know if you remember, we were saying, I was telling you how important prophecy is to recognize who Christ is, and you were saying, yeah, prophecy is important, but you were talking about like, the gospel and love and mercy, and you were saying, prophecy is important, you were like, but have you ever read the book of Romans, or Galatians? And I told you, and I told you, no, I've read it before because I did. But I forgot to mention, like, I went back and I did read the book of Romans and Galatians, and at first, I just kind of was taking it the same way that I've took it for those 11 years that I was in the church. I just kind of was like, oh, okay, well, I'm just cherry picking what I wanted to see, or what I was able to see at that time. But, the more that I studied it, there was more and more things that were, coming alive that I was like, this doesn't make sense with, with the way that I believe, And so, I would say that, stick, definitely bring up the book of Romans. I think Romans is now one of my favorite books. But I think that, most importantly, man, just what you guys have been doing is just, being patient, showing that humility, and, just showing members that you actually are listening to them, because some of these members, I feel like a lot of the members, man, like me, they're, very zealous, and they do love God, but, it's the way that they've been taught God, and so, that's really the thing that kind of, makes me feel, sad, because, I can genuinely say that, man, like, I really love God, and I felt that when I was in there for all those years that I was doing the right thing, and that, that there was no way that I could be wrong. And, and so now, looking back at it, like, I really feel like, I was fine, because even though I would listen, I would listen to people, and but there's a lot of indoctrination that goes along with, when you're in this church, you're, and it's not just this church. Obviously I'm gonna speak about this because I belong to this church, but I've been studying like different cults, and it's the same tactics. And like basically, like once they get you to, they take someone that has no knowledge of the Bible, and they begin to teach you the Bible through their lenses. And once you give somebody that authority or that kind of trust to where you're just accepting everything that they say, then even when someone tries to bring up a good point, or you're already seeing the scriptures from another lens that doesn't allow you to see it that way. And one thing that I learned now looking back is that because I study, I mean, I still to this day, I love studying the Bible. When I was in the church, I was studying the Bible, a lot as well. But one thing that I realized is that the way that I would study it all those years, I wasn't really studying the Bible. I was proof texting the Bible. Mm-hmm. I was mostly looking for verses, interested in verses that would help me with certain, points of discussions, certain topics that I'm going to be talking with these different, individuals that, I'm preparing, for different people with different kinds of faith. And now that I'm reading the Bible, and now I'm looking at a book, and I'm reading from the very beginning, and I'm seeing that, it's amazing, man. Like, I mean, it's beautiful. Like, you're seeing, when you read a book from the beginning, you're understanding, first, why the apostle or the prophet is writing that letter, who he's writing it to, and purpose of why he's writing it. You have to understand the context, because if you don't understand the context, it's easy to just cherry pick something in the middle of his letter or at the end of his letter. And you gotta remember, when the Bible was first written, there was no verses. So it's just one, full letter. So we're not doing it justice to take, that's like going to a movie, or, I don't know, what kind of example can I give? Like, going to a movie theater, seeing a movie for the first time. Yeah, you sit down in the middle of the movie, and then you try to give your opinion, like, well, this movie is about this, when you're about 3/4 in. And the person that's, been there from the very beginning, that's been watching it and understands it, he's like, no, that's not what it's talking about. You got to be very arrogant to just be like, no, man, I judging from the 3/4, the last quarter of the movie, this is what it's talking about, and
that's such a good example, such a good illustration of how the World Mission Society Church of God studies the Bible. And it's I think takes us back to what you were saying about Galatians, and that's interesting. Thanks for bringing that up. That one of the things that happened in that initial conversation was you challenged us to go and study Daniel. I think it's chapter 7. Was it chapter 7? And kind of give some answers to some of the things you brought up from that. And our simple encouragement was that you would go and read the entire book of Galatians, like not just chapter 4, verse 26. But go and start at the beginning, and then I think another challenge was ask yourself, like, do you really think, read the book, the entire book all the way through, and like, do you really think that ask yourself, like, is it really about Mother God, and what is Paul saying about what the gospel is and what it's all about? So yeah, like, that's interesting that you're acknowledging that for you, so much of your studying the Bible wasn't really that. You were basically, I think, doing what most members do is proof texting. You're going in and you're trying to pull out verses that will support a preconceived idea, that you're already assuming about what the book says, and you're just going to go in and try to find text that can support what you already have decided you're going to believe.
Right. And that's the problem, and it's very burdensome, because then even, later when you try to understand the rest of the scriptures, like, you kind of learn how to just kind of tune it all out and just look at what's beneficial for you and for your, for your case, you're studying your arguments, and so yeah, I'm like, It's crazy, but yeah, I would definitely say, the book of Romans and the book of Galatians is some very good books, man. And the whole Bible. I mean, honestly, like, another example that that comes to mind is, I've been thinking lately, is like, if you give the Bible to someone in an island, a far off island, never met anybody. and you tell him, he's interested in knowing God. Let's say hypothetically, he knows there's a God. He wants to know what it is. You're like, here, I'm going to give you this Bible. I'm going to leave. I'm going to come back in a few years. Tell me what you think. Tell me what you understand. I guarantee you that they're not going to say Aung San Suu and there's a God the Mother. Someone has to teach you that. And so, whether or not, they understand everything about Jesus, if they were to read the Bible like that, they would at least know, if they really studied it seriously, if they studied the Old Testament, even if they didn't know right away everything about who Jesus was, they would understand the foreshadowing that God showed throughout the Old Testament, so that when someone finally comes and just puts the pieces of the puzzle together, it's a clear picture. Jesus from the beginning, now until the end. It's really, it's all about Jesus. The whole Bible is about Jesus. Jesus was there in the beginning. One verse that, that I loved to use when I was in the church was Genesis 1:26. God said, let us, us and our, and it's plural, and it has to be God the Mother, and because who else is there, in the beginning with God? It has to be, because look, male and female were created. And then, I'm reading the Bible, I look at, now I'm seeing so many things like John chapter 1, and literally the title is, the verse 1, in the beginning, and it goes right back to Genesis 1:26. The title is in the beginning, right? The beginning. So John chapter 1, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. And so it says everything was created through Jesus, the Son, and so I'm seeing these things now, and I'm like, man, I've probably read this 1,000 times, but I never really paid attention. And it's because I was conditioned to see the Bible through a certain lens. But now I feel like everything is making, some members fear that, I can't make sense of the Bible without someone teaching me. Let the Holy Spirit teach you. Like Jesus said in Matthew chapter 5, ask, knock on the door and it shall be answered to you. Like I got on my knees and I asked God, like, reveal yourself to me. I want to know. I desperately want to know the truth. I want to be saved, and God has answered me, and so, my challenge to members is, don't be like, we used to, especially me, I used to always be like, always say, compare people to Pharisees or Sadducees, people out there in the world that, like specifically Christians, or anyone that, kind of like tooth and nail, believes, their doctrine. It's easy to just call someone a Pharisee, but, really the Pharisees were teachers of the law. They're people that were very well versed, and they kept the law better than any of us. But Jesus, even though they were keeping the law and outwardly they looked, nice and they were looked up to, Jesus always saw the inside. And Jesus was always concerned with the heart. And that's one thing that I realized, that, for 11 years, I was, gaining all this wisdom and understanding, and I thought I had all the answers. But one thing that remained the same was my heart. My heart was never changed. And so, now, even my heart feels different. Like, it's heavy, and, I just have so many emotions, man. And honestly, like, this is why I'm doing this. This isn't for me. Honestly, this is not for me. This is for the people out there that were in situations like me, and if I could help anybody, my goal is not to say like the churches, the church is evil, and the people in there are, I believe the people are misled, and I think they were taught God wrong. I think that even the leadership of the church, like I'm talking like, overseers, some deacons and missionaries, like even them, that they're, it's just like Jehovah's Witness, leaders and elders, like they really believe, that what they've been taught. They have the faith of their conviction, but I think that it's at the top. where the you know the deception starts. And
Yes.
you know, and so I want to help people, man, and it's not just people in the in the Church of God. Like I said, it's anyone, man, and you know this is a good platform to do it. So again,
Yeah.
I thank you for the time, man.
Yeah, well, something you said is very similar to what I think, conversations I've had with Jesse and others in the past about, if you take the Bible and give it to somebody and they go off on a deserted island, read it by themselves, would they come away with the doctrines of the World Mission Society Church of God? Would they come away with this idea that the Bible teaches a mother God, or that Christ is going to come back with a new name sort of deal? Is that what you would get if you're not being taught this, you're just picking up the Bible and reading it, from the beginning for yourself and critically examining the text and asking yourself, what is this saying? What was the author trying to convey? And I think you're absolutely right. You would never would you come up with the core doctrines of the World Mission Society Church of God. And so I've heard another former member say recently, he emphasized the fact that the World Mission Society Church of God really is not a Bible-based group. Like, they're not Bible-based. They're groups that's based in, the books of Aung San Hong. Like, they're in large part rooted in Aung San Hong, and then, people like Ju Chul Kim, who have taken Aung San Hong's teachings, and not only have he twisted the authors of the Bible, but I think Ju Chul Kim and others have twisted Aung San Hong and his teachings. I think what the World Mission Society Church of God teaches, if Aung San Hong knew half of what they teach and half of what they say about him, he'd be rolling over in his grave. Like, this is never what I intended. Although I think he had some terrible, messed up doctrines as well, plenty on his own. But yeah, that would be maybe before we kind of, I obviously we want to get to your story and let you share a little bit of that. But I think maybe before we jump into that, just kind of giving this encouragement to especially members to do kind of what Edgar was just talking about, like taking the book of Romans or the book of Galatians, and if you want to know, is this group, is the World Mission Society Church of God, is it the truth? Are their doctrines correct? Are they biblical? You guys think that you have sort of this monopoly on understanding the Bible, and you feel like you have all this profound insight into what the Bible teaches. Well, then just take the Bible, take a book like Galatians, and start at the beginning, just read it all the way through, and be critical as you do so, and don't come in with this determination to just find verses that will support what you already believe, but just pick it up and say, what was Paul really trying to say? What's the gospel message that he preached? If I just had, the book of Galatians and Romans, and then somebody asked, based on that, tell me what is the gospel, or what did Paul teach about things like salvation and things like that, and do that. Go and read those books by yourself and see what happens.
Right.
I think if you're honest and if you're sincere when you sit down and do that, you're going to find that a lot of these World Mission Society Church of God doctrines that you might have felt are so solid and irrefutable, you're going to find that when you actually read the Bible creates a lot of problems for Church of God doctrine.
I agree 100%, and adding to that, I think that I like it's a friendly challenge that I want to direct to the Church of God members, or anyone in a in any kind of group that's not a Christian group, or basically, like, my question is, do we understand, like, who Jesus is, what the Bible says Jesus is, and what the gospel is? I think those are two things that are very important that we cannot mess up in, and and we can't be mistaken on either of those, and don't be afraid to pursue truth. You know, when I used to preach to people, I used to always tell them, like, you know, really, like, from my heart, I would say, you know, have an open mind. Don't be like the Pharisees that close their minds and their heart to Jesus' message. They thought they knew everything, so they closed their minds to the gospel. You know,
Right.
so I would say, you know, please be humble, have an open mind, and consider the things that I say. Well, do you do the same thing? You know, like, we members, ask yourself, like, when we preach to people, do we also have an open mind to hear what the other person has to say, or are we like the Pharisees that believe we just know, you know, everything? It's easy to just, you know, combat everything with saying, I know I have the truth, I know I have the truth, and I know I can't be wrong. I know that I know who the true God is. Well, Paul did the same thing, and, you know, look what happened to him. You know, Paul was very zealous. He thought he had it all figured out. He kept the laws better than any Church of God member that I know of. You know, he knew the Bible like the back of his hand, yet he was wrong. You know, and Jesus revealed, you know, himself to him. And, you know, if we use the same criteria with the Jehovah's Witness, you know, if he gets stuck, you know, on a certain, you know, Bible verse, and he says, you know, well, I just know I have the truth. You know, Jehovah's God and the Watchtower is the inspired, you know, truth. And, you know, so, you know, what does that mean? You know, should we just accept that and just, you know, let him be, or, you know, are we gonna, you know, do our best to really, like, reach out to these people? You know, when we say that we're out here, and, you know, being a member of the Church of God, when I was out there, I would say, you know, I'm out here trying to save souls. Are we really out here trying to, you know, save souls? You know, are we just trying to preach our doctrine? You know, are we just trying to get our point across? You know, I think that also our souls are important as well, you know, and we should, you know, we should definitely consider, you know, other people's words and not look at it as someone is trying to. I think that sometimes when you're a member of the church or any one of these groups, when you're sitting down and you're conversating with someone, you know, it's usually, you know, an argument, or, you know, when they're speaking, instead of actually listening to them, you're just kind of going ahead of them and thinking of your next. You know, you're just like, okay, as soon as he gets done talking, I'm going to go to this point, you know, and we need to hear, you know, we need to have a humble mind to hear, you know, what other people have to say, man, because, you know, you know, you never know, man. You know, God works in mysterious ways, and, you know, really it took, you know, a lot of things for me to really, like, really open my mind and really feel that God is the one who opened my heart up, to soften my heart, to make me realize that I didn't have everything figured out, and that, you know, prophecies and all this wisdom is good, but you know, it's not what Jesus was looking for. It's not what the, you know, and the gospel, really, the gospel is really something that really opened my eyes. The gospel in Romans is, you know, it's laid out perfectly, so clearly, but even throughout the whole New Testament, like, I mean, if the past, you know, I'm looking forward to where I'm going to begin telling my whole story up to the point to where I left the church, because I want to bring up some very crucial points of, you know, the gospel and how I left. But even thinking a little about the New Testament, you know, like, you know, the Ethiopian eunuch. The Bible says when he heard the good news about Jesus, he stopped the chariot and he gave orders, and, you know, hey, I see water right there. What's keeping me from being baptized? And the Bible says it was when he heard the good news about Jesus, right? So the good news is the gospel in Greek. So he literally heard the good news about Jesus, but that means he heard the gospel, right? He heard the gospel of Jesus Christ. Well, what was the gospel? What is the gospel? Well, Philip was preaching to him from Isaiah 53. That has nothing to do with the Passover, the feast, the laws. It was Jesus Christ being led like sheep to the slaughter, being crucified and torn apart for our sins. And you know, all our iniquity was put on him, and through his wounds we are healed. And that moved the Ethiopian eunuch. And the Bible says when he understood that and he accepted that, when he realized the good news, he felt in his heart he wanted to stop and get baptized. Not because he feared God, he thought war was coming, the end was coming. It was not like that. It was because in his heart was touched because his heart responded to the message. And, I think that, that's a very important point that really helped me out, is really understanding what is the real biblical gospel, not something that someone taught you, but what is the biblical gospel that, throughout the whole New Testament. And, when you search for that and you search for Jesus, I think that a lot of times where people go wrong is they're out, even me. There was a point in my life where I was just out searching for questions. And there's millions of questions, man. And if you go out on a pursuit to, search for questions, when you find out, answers to certain questions, well, you're going to get a lot, you're going to have a lot more questions after that, and you never get your fill, and I realized that Jesus, there's a difference of when you're chasing questions and when you find the answer. See, the answer is Jesus. And, the book of Ephesians explains that in him is hidden all the mysteries and, all the treasures of wisdom and knowledge. And when you find the answer, then all the questions, like whatever questions you have, they'll be answered. Whatever, you need to know, God will make sure, you know. But as long as you know the answer, that's the most important thing, man. And so again, that's my challenge for the members is, know who Jesus is and, what is the gospel, and I think those two things are, very important.
Yeah. Yeah. That's so good. And that's just re-emphasizes, I think, so much of what I've been trying to say, for a lot of years. You just said it with a little bit more credibility behind it because of your background, but just to hear you talk about things like you coming across passages like about the eunuch and seeing, okay, what happened there? Was there any mention of Passover or make sure you go keep Sabbath day, make sure you tithe enough, make sure you go out and preach enough. There was no mention of any of that. The only thing that eunuch did was he trusted and he believed in this good news about Jesus, and then immediately was baptized. And there's places like Acts chapter 10, where it talks about how Peter was preaching to the Gentiles, the gospel. Obviously, he makes no mention of Passover. Well, there's no mention of Passover or any mention of Sabbath keeping, except for there's no mention of the disciples or the apostles teaching about Passover or Sabbath in the book of Acts. But yet it talks about these Gentiles heard the message and they received the Holy Spirit. Like they believed it and they received the Holy Spirit. Well, if biblically speaking, if you receive the Holy Spirit, well, that shows that, you're good with God, right? You are right. a child of God, or you are saved, whatever terminology you maybe want to use there. And the fact that these people receive the Holy Spirit completely apart from any sort of interaction with keeping Passover or Sabbath or tithing or anything like that, any of these requirements that the WMSCOG puts on members, that should make members stop and pause and say, what, again, going back to the gospel, of what is the gospel message that the authors of the Bible were trying to communicate? And is it the same message that I have believed in? And so, that's something, regardless of what your thoughts are about the Bible, if you're an ex-member or not a member at all who just doesn't even believe in the Bible, you can pick it up and see that what it teaches, what it's trying to convey, is so much, so far removed from what the World Mission Society Church of God teaches. And I think if you just pick it up and read it for yourself, apart from the influence of your pastors and your deacons and your elders, you're going to come up with a much different message from the Bible than what the WMSCOG has been feeding you. And so with that, I think this is a long intro, but I think there's a lot of good stuff there. But we do want to hear, Edgar, we want to hear your story. We want to hear, at least some of how you got into the group. And then obviously we want to know sort of about your experiences inside and then ultimately what made you leave. But let's just start at the beginning and just tell us, when did you join, and what was it initially that made you join the World Mission Society Church of God?
So I joined church. I was baptized actually on the first night that I had studied with the church, which was in December 2010. And it was actually like a few days before Christmas. How it started was, kind of giving a little background before, I even was approached, by the church. I considered myself a Christian. I believed in God, but my understanding of God was kind of the same as my understanding of Santa Claus. Like it was really tradition. I really couldn't say that I knew who God was. I just knew of God, and and I think a lot of us, a lot of people are like that. That they really don't know who God is. They're just kind of like taught, like their tradition, their family tradition, and so, I believed in God. I said I believed in Jesus, and I always had a respect for God, but I really, I would go to churches from time to time, but it just kind of went in one ear and out the other. Never really got nothing that kind of stuck with me. I had a good friend of mine that I had, met, years past at my first job, and we became good friends, and then I've seen him in some years, and one day I was, at an apartment complex with my wife and my son. It was late at night. It was a weekday, and my friend that I hadn't seen in a few years came knocking on my door. And I remember I answered the door, and I was kind of like, man, it's late, and it was my friend. He was dressed up in a suit and tie, and I'm like, man, what's going on, and he's like, man, I want to talk to you. Well, first he was like, how you doing? It's been a long time. He comes, I tell him come in, and we're talking, catching up, and then he starts telling me about the church, and he's like, I'm going to this church, man, and it's the true church, and Christ came back from Korea, and all these things. And at first when he told me these things, I'm like, man, no, this doesn't sound right. Like, man, you're crazy. And come and study. And he was like, come and study and see for yourself. And so I was like, I was kind of like, no, I'm not. It's too late. I gotta work the next day, and make a long story short, he convinced me. Ended up on the deacon and on speakerphone to where I could hear him, because I was like, there's no way that a church is open this late at night, And so he calls the deacon. The deacon's like, yeah, bring him by, and come and study. And so right away I was like, oh, okay, well, I wasn't expecting that. What's going on? They're really eager to share the message. So I get to the church, and the house church at this point is just a house church, and it was on the north end here in Wichita. And so I get there, we're one of the only people there, and at first it was kind of sketchy, but I'm there with my friend, and my wife and my son. And so the deacon at this time, he's really nice, really humble, and he sits us down in I believe it was the living room, but they kind of turned it into like a classroom. They had a big board and the podium and everything, and so he begins to right away, start going off on the board. And I remember the first I studied was like the secret forgiveness of sins, and he tells me like that basically I'm a guilt trip off the very beginning is you're a sinner, and in the most humblest way. I mean, I have the guy, I love the guy. He's a really nice guy, really humble, but from the very beginning, remember, they're going off a script. It's not their own words. So, in the script, you gotta make sure you let them know you're a sinner, and you try to kill God in heaven. And, it's true, we're bad people, but about as far as trying to kill God in heaven and pre-existence and all that's not in the scripture. But that's another point for another day. But anyway, they give you this guilt trip, and they make you, you're like, wow, like I'm going to hell, and so they tell you, basically they lead you to the very end to where they tell you that you have to keep Passover in order to go back to heaven. And if you don't keep it, then you're pretty much, dead, and you're not going to be forgiven of your sins. And so, I had no understanding of, second coming Christ or God the Mother or any of that. I just knew that I needed to keep Passover in order to be saved. So I remember that after we got done studying that, he asked me if we had any questions, and asked me what I thought and if I wanted to keep the Passover. And then I said yes, and he was like, well, you have to get baptized first. And I was like, okay, let's get baptized. So, I wasn't thinking, at that time I was very young, and so, me, my wife, my son, in the middle of the night, like, I don't know, midnight, we got baptized, in the bathtub at their house. And, since then, like, after that, it was pretty much like they encouraged us to go to church every single day and to continue to study. And so, we were going every single day, and, studying every single day, and, and basically went through the sermon books quick, because at that time here in Wichita, the church was first starting. So I realized later the reason why they were kind of like rushing us through is because they want to make us gospel workers, and they really took like an interest in me. I feel like, because I remember that as soon as they got done with like book one, studying with me book one, in a matter of days, they handed me a book, and they're like, okay, now you're gonna teach. Now we're gonna, train you to teach. And so, looking back at it, they kind of gave me like a crash course, and, focused on me, because I think it was easier to focus on members at that time a lot more when there's not that many people that you got to manage. So, they focused on me a lot, and they trained me very well in their sermon books. And so yeah, man, that's kind of how I got started. And right off the bat, like I guess when you think you have the truth, and you think that you have, you've met God, and and right, you think the end is coming any day now, automatically you want to go and bring your loved ones and your family. So I go tell my parents, and it took a while. They finally came, got baptized, and then my cousin and friends, and man, I was off, and bringing people, and I that's the thing, is when they see that you bring like people, that you have the ability to bring people, that's when they really take like a liking to you, and they really focus on you, because you're they're basically protecting their investment, and they're looking at you as, through you we can bring in a lot of people, that's how I'm understanding now. Like, that's my opinion, but that's that's what I really believe, that because I've been through, I was I wasn't a leader. Like, I never had a title. They try to send me out to establish, church many times, and I've actually been sent out to lead services in certain churches. But even like it's crazy, man. Like really, like there's so many things that I want to mention about, even when we're going out and we're establishing these churches, and if there's not enough people for them to, I feel like, to profit out of, or it's not a big enough city, we'll get a lot of people that are coming to the service, but if there's not enough, my opinion, revenue, or a big enough city, that they forget about the place, and they stop sending people to keep the service, and they leave the people be. And,
so you're saying that a lot of that, you feel like, in your opinion, is influenced by money, by whether or not someone or a group of people or individuals can help bring in cash flow determines their level of importance. Is that what you're kind
Yeah,
of
I mean,
saying?
in my opinion, yes, because to me it doesn't make sense. If we go to a city and we baptize, I can name like Blackwell, Oklahoma. We went there in around 2015, and I mean, we baptized hundreds of people in that church. And I got proof in my phone. I got videos of me being there, leading the service. I would get sent. We would come back to Wichita after we have all those baptisms, and we'd get, I'd get sent out a lot to go to travel to Oklahoma and study with the members to kind of like, build their faith is what we would say, let's build their faith.
Right.
And then I come back to Wichita, and then when it would be the service day, they would send me back to keep like a Sabbath day service with them. And people would show up, and we would rent a hotel, and, people would show up and we'd keep the service. But what happened was, as time started going by and we started, establishing churches in bigger cities, we focused more on those places and got actual buildings for them. And the members, because there was not that many members that were attending service in Oklahoma, it just one day just forgot about them. And,
Wow.
it happened a lot,
So do you feel like then there's a relation between kind of what you're saying there and the mentality that they have about money? Do you feel like that's related to why so many members have told us that they were either discouraged from or explicitly told not to preach to like the elderly, handicapped, homeless, homosexuals, things like that, but especially, groups like the homeless or the elderly. Because when I hear that, like my opinion, I want to be careful to word it in that way. My opinion on that is that I look at that and I say, well, obviously they're not in it for the people. They don't actually have this genuine care for the souls or the hearts or the well-being of the people they're preaching to. They're just, in large part anyways, they're looking at what can they gain by those who they are preaching to. And so do you feel like that's kind of plays into it as far as why so many members are told not to preach to these certain groups of people?
Yeah, it all comes, in my opinion, again, it all comes down to, what benefits, the church the most. And, even I can share from my experience, like, here in Wichita, not once was I ever told, not once as a church were we told, hey, let's go evangelize in, the places where the people, homeless or, people that need,
people that really need it,
care. Yeah, like we never went evangelizing there. It was always, we need to find college students. We need to find juicy fruits for mother. We need to go to these universities, and we need to go to these gated communities in the east side and the west side of Wichita, and it was always targeting those areas. And I always felt like in my heart, like, man, what about these people, and I was told point blank, like no one can tell me, like that the church didn't teach that, like that we shouldn't preach to, these people. I also was, in charge of a group and unit, and I've been assistant, and I was told, I taught people, like for the longest, because of what I was taught, like, hey, these people are like this because of, their sin that they committed in heaven, and but even then, even though, like, I was taught that and I had to say that, I still preached to some homeless people, and I even brought them in because I don't know, man. I always knew there was something, but it would always, I noticed when I brought, people in like that, they were genuine, caring people, but the rest of, like, the leadership wouldn't give the same attention to those people as if I were to bring someone from a university, or, you know, and
Yeah.
so, you know,
And that, you know, that kind of stuff is just always just, it's bewildering to me. You know, a group like the World Mission Society Church of God that claims to be, you know, biblical and to have such profound understanding of the Bible, you know, it doesn't take a whole lot of reading of the Bible to realize that, you know, that's a big issue, that sort of attitude, that sort of behavior. I mean, it sort of goes back to, if you just pick up the Bible yourself, go to a book like James, or just read through the Gospels and look at Jesus and how he interacted with certain groups, like, you know, the prostitutes, or the people who were kind of looked at as the low of the low, lesser in society. And it seemed like those were the kinds of people that he was hanging out with. And so much of his ministry seemed to be all about, you know, when he was mad at the Pharisees, it seemed like the thing he was mad at them about was because they were doing exactly this sort of thing that you're describing, where they're like showing favoritism to certain people who can benefit them, and ignoring those who will be more of a hindrance. So it's like baffling to me when I see members are so supposedly passionate about God's law and keeping the commands of God, and, you know, like accusing people like me, saying, you know, you're a heathen going to hell and Satan worshiper because you celebrate Christmas, and then all the while they are, you know, treating with contempt all these different people groups that, you know, if you look at Jesus, it seemed to be these were the people that he really came for. You know, he came not for those who are well, but those who are sick, those who need a physician. And so that's just something that's always been, it continues to this day to just be so confusing about how somebody could be, I don't know what the word would be, I guess just blind to some of the clear, you know, things that are conveyed in the Bible about what really is important, you know, in the mind of God. What's more important, how you treat your neighbor, how you treat the lowly, the poor of the world, or if you're keeping Sabbath or not. Like, which one seems to be valued more in the eyes of Jesus, if, you know. And it just seems like if you look at the Gospels and look at Jesus, it's pretty obvious which one he was more concerned with. Was he more concerned with the outward of keeping Sabbath and keeping these outward rituals, or was he more concerned with those who, you know, loving your neighbor, and helping, sharing your heart, and doing good to those who needed it. So yeah, that's just, that to this day, that's still just, it's crazy to me that that's so widely practiced in the WMSCOG by a group that claims to be, you know, biblically based.
And you know, and again, it's because, you know, they're hardened. You know, that it's all about, you know, it's all about knowledge. It's all about, you know, what they've been taught is the correct way to evangelize certain people, and only certain people are acceptable in the eyes of God. Yet they don't even see the holes in you know, in that doctrine itself. Like, there's so many holes in the doctrine that it's not even funny. It does not hold any water whatsoever. Like, the stuff that I really thought that there's no way I could be wrong, and this is the perfect truth. Like, now I realize, like, wow, like, there's so many holes in this thing that there's not enough plugs in the world. You get, like, you know, like they say, you know, like you know, like, hey, you know, you gotta we gotta save 7 billion souls. We gotta, you know, preach the forgiveness of sins and keep the Passover. But then when you try to go do, only with certain people, you know, not these right. people, because, you know, they're not,
they don't have money,
you know. Exactly. You know, well, you know, they might not even say nothing, but like, again, I said, we never went and evangelized in those areas. But then again, according to their number one, you know, one of their favorite verses, John chapter 6, verse 53, Jesus says, unless you eat my flesh and blood, you have no life in you. And he said, whoever eats my flesh. So what does whoever mean? It means anyone. So if we're going to stay consistent to what they teach, then it's not exclusive. It's for everyone, whoever eats my flesh and blood, if we're being consistent to what, Church of God teaching. But see, within their doctrine, they cherry pick, to certain people, and they make it to where, basically everything, is it benefits them, like whatever benefits them, that's the path they're going to take. And, again, it's because, and the members, they don't realize these things because they're just following, they're just obeying, and they're too scared to question anything. And that's one of the things that I also want to mention is this is not just exclusive to the Church of God. This is Jehovah's Witness, Mormons, Hebrew Israelism, so many different cults out there.
Right.
And they basically teach you that they put so much fear in you to question anything about the church. And if you question anything, you should feel guilty, and you're an enemy,
questioning God. Yeah,
you're questioning, how dare you? You're questioning God. You're questioning the perfect truth. I mean, you're questioning your Savior. But yet the Bible. How come the Bible didn't say that to the Berean Jews? When Apostle Paul commends them in the book of Acts, chapter 17, right? Yeah. The Berean Jews, they were even called noble. They were commended by the apostle because they didn't just accept everything that Apostle Paul taught, but they examined the scriptures to see if what Apostle Paul said was true. How come they were not rebuked or called people of little faith? They were commended. And again, in the Bible, it says you should test spirits to see if the spirits come from God. But yet you have these organizations that tell you, no, don't do that. Don't go on the internet. Don't go over here. Don't go over there. But the thing is, when you're scared to find out, what the truth is, then you'll just stay in the same place that you're in. And, and it makes me feel so sorry for the people, like I said, in all these different groups, because they're so scared to question anything. And yet when I read the Bible, I see the apostles were glad to answer questions. I mean, these people, Jesus said, blessed are those who thirst, who are hungry for righteousness. And, they welcome, questions. In the New Testament, it says all over the place, be ready to give an answer for the the hope that that's in you. And we, as Christians, we're supposed to have answers for people that are thirsty for the truth, and we should shame them and say to them, oh, you don't have enough. Why are you asking questions? You don't have strong enough faith, and you're bad because you have these questions. You shouldn't feel bad to have these questions. These questions should be answered because here's the thing: if something is true, it's gonna stand no matter what. So what are people afraid of? Are you afraid to find out what is the truth? Or are you afraid that you might actually be in the darkness? Is that really the question? Yeah. And so the Bible says, people that are in the dark, they're scared to come into the light for the fear that their deeds might be exposed, and so my thing is you have to test everything through the fire. I mean, if it's true, it should stand up to scrutiny. Nothing should be able to break the truth. The apostles, they were never scared to go out into public. Look at Apollos in the New Testament time. The Bible says Apollos would go out and publicly debate the Pharisees and Sadducees. Right. When have I ever seen a Church of God leader publicly debate anybody?
Yes.
Never.
And the invitation is still open for them to come on to this platform and do so in a respectful way. Such a great point. Yeah. That's not just something that we're inviting members to come on and do, leaders or deacons or pastors. We want you to come on and represent this group, but that's not even necessarily just our idea. That's something you see modeled in the Bible, like you said, by people like Apollos, who would publicly debate. And ultimately, it seems like for groups like the World Mission Society Church of God, high demand groups, high control groups. And again, you're so right to say it's not just this group; it's so many other groups. Even within Christianity, evangelicalism, that can happen and does happen. But the truth should not be afraid to have a dialogue, a genuine, honest dialogue. The truth. Those who have the truth should not be afraid to have a simple phone conversation with me. Something I've invited almost every time I have a YouTube dialogue in the comment sections. I always try to invite them to come on and just talk to me like a human being. And it's happened, I think, maybe once or twice, but very, very rarely. And so for groups that are high demand, high control, that try to guilt and shame and produce fear in their members to not ask questions. Don't question the doctrine. To me, that's such a clear sign of insecurity. Like that points to just an insecurity and a fearfulness in the organization itself that it's going to be found out or something like that. Like they know they have to control the information because they know that at the root of it all, if the truth is found out, it's all going to collapse.
Right. And again, and that's such a, eye-opening, that's a red flag. I mean, people, we should, as members, they should see right through that, why is it that there is no public debate? It's always come into this church, into this secluded room, and it's best if you have no biblical knowledge, come in here into the secluded room, and then we're gonna teach you, and we're basically gonna give you, books like these, which we're gonna tell you the Bible is so difficult to understand, and you have to read these books, and these books are tools to make it easy for you to understand the Bible. But what people don't realize, and again, this is not just the Church of God, this is a lot of churches are like this. They'll give you their literature, and then they'll tell you this is a compass. It's going to help you understand the Bible easier. It's going to make more sense. But what you don't realize is that you're just going to accept everything that their books, the way the Bible from their point of view. You're accepting it by, when you read these books, you're already conditioning your mind to understand the Bible the way they see the Bible. Yes. And so you don't even get a fair shot of really understanding the Bible for yourself. And again, before I forget, I want to mention a point about Apollos. I think one of the main reasons why I love that example in the Bible, in the book of Acts of Apollos going out and debating these Pharisees and the teachers of the law. My question is, was it because I can already see members, we don't want to do that because it's, it's not, whatever excuse that they can come up with, no benefit. We're wasting our time with these false prophets, evil spirits, because this is what a leader would say. I know, this is don't waste your time, and they're evil spirits, they're false prophets. But Apollos didn't feel like he was wasting his time, because I don't think that Apollos' reason for debating the Pharisees or the teachers of the law was for them or for him to prove that he's right and they're wrong. But what about the benefit for the listeners, for the listeners of the debate, to find out, to have an opportunity to weigh the options and see which one really sounds like it when it's been tested, not when someone is just allowed to speak over and over, but when it's really put to the test, what stands up more to the fire, and what are we so afraid about that? That's what we should be doing, and so again, it's a healthy encouragement. If you really feel that you have the truth, what's holding you? Why is it members, when they come on these videos, even me, myself included, I'm not saying, because I was like that for 11 years, when I would come on, videos like this or other content, you're going under different aliases, you never use your name, you'll never show your face. because you know that you know you'll get rebuked by the church, and you know, and you'll be looked down upon, and what are you even doing there, you know? But I feel that a lot of members are deep down, even be under all the, you know, the face of, you know, that defense that they put up. There's something inside of that they feel that something's not right. And you know what really got me out was the sense of not having peace. You know, for 11 years, I felt that I had, you know, a lot of knowledge and a lot of understanding. You know, a lot, you know, like some members, you know, like they look at it as far as like, you know, have you bore a lot of fruits, and that'll tell you where you stand with God, you know. And you know, I can say that you know, according to the church doctrine, I bore a lot of, you know, I should have a gold ticket to go to heaven, because look, I even got, I want to show you this. Look, this is
Wow.
an award that I got.
Okay. Wow.
And you know, look at this. And
Okay, so not many people get that, huh?
No.
There's your name too. Okay, yeah.
And so this was, you know, this is supposedly
Wow.
given to you from, you know, God the Mother. And
I've never seen one of those.
Yeah, and you know, this was given to me because in a matter of, you know, a few months, I led hundreds of people into the church. And so, you know, again, they reward stuff like that. You know, they focus, you know, they really focus on people that, you know, have the ability to, you know, bring people in, and you know, they do their best to, like, again, whatever benefits, you know, in my opinion, it's whatever, you know, whatever benefits them, whatever helps the, you know, the church out. But the funny thing is, you know, out of all those people, that hundreds of, I don't know how many hundreds of people I brought in, but I can say that, you know, like a lot of those, you know, a lot of these people that bring in these large amount of members, like, you know, more than 90% of them never come back. You just kind of get them to get baptized by scaring the heck out of them with World War III. And you know, I remember there was times when I wouldn't even bring the Bible out. I would really go out and I would just have, like, you know, certain news articles bookmarked on CNN or RT News, and I would be like, you know, hey man, look, the World War III's coming, and you know, you have the mark of the beast right now, and you need to receive the seal of God, and that's keeping the Passover. And if you don't come get baptized right now, World War III can break out. And I had my whole pitch, like it was a script. Yeah, like World War III is gonna break out, and it takes 5 minutes for all the nukes to be in the air. From the time that they're in the air and to the time they hit the ground, you got approximately 3 to 5 minutes. What are you going to do in 3 to 5 minutes? You have no time to do anything. So the only thing that matters right now is, are you saved? And have you kept the Passover? You're not saved, so you need to come to the, you know, and it was just, and this is how you get people, you know, and it's scare tactics, you know. But the thing is, you know, it's one of the, like I said earlier, it's funny to me because now I look back at it, and like I know hundreds of, I'm still friends with a lot of church leaders, and I'm pretty sure after this video I'm probably going to be public enemy number one. So
yeah.
But you know, it's funny because I've brushed shoulders with so many, you know, leaders and so many members, and you know, preaching, you know, World War III's coming and all these things. But one of the first warnings Jesus Christ gave in Matthew chapter 24 about the sign of the false prophets is, you're going to hear of wars and rumors of wars. See to it that you are not alarmed. Such things must happen, but the end is yet to come. And yet we're out here, first thing in our mouth, and a lot of the members' mouth is, World War III's coming,
You're
war's
spreading
coming.
rumors of wars. Yeah.
Exactly. And, you know, that's one of the things that Jesus clearly said, you know, don't even pay attention to that.
Don't fall for it.
Such things must happen, you know, and yet we're just you know, and we say we're going off exactly what the Bible teaches. Well, That doesn't really make sense with that, does it? And so, there's so many holes in doctrine, man, and I can't wait to, get to another part where we can talk about King David and how there's so many, literally every
we need to do
study,
a whole video about that, I think.
So many holes in the doctrine, man, but again, it just, really, man, I can't wait to, to really keep, trying to do my part to help people, open their eyes to the truth. And, that's the goal, man. It's not, all the glory has to go to God, man. Ultimately, God is the one that has to do the work. But we also, I believe God has given us free will. And so that's where it comes into play, that we also have to make a conscious choice to if we have these doubts, are we going to keep suppressing them? Are we going to keep throwing them in the back burner and keep being told that not to worry about it? It's not important. We'll study about it later. Or you have to ask yourself, why is it that these questions keep coming up in my mind? Why, even though they tell me to push it to the back burner, why is it still heavy on my heart? Is because who's putting it there? You have to, the Bible says, when you know the truth will set you free. And honestly, I feel free. Like for 11 years, I felt that I was a slave. There was no peace, It doesn't matter. I just showed you awards for all the fruit that I bore, and, all the Sabbaths that I never missed a Sabbath, and Passover, and, all these things. But I had no peace. I had no peace, man. And I can honestly say that. And, it was always, you always examined if you thought the end was coming, if you thought because every year it's a different prophecy that the world's going to end. And, you always try to do your best up until that, time where they say the world's going to end or something's going to happen. And you're always questioning yourself. Am I saved? Even after you did all these things, but then you ask yourself, well,
because you can't really ever know.
Exactly. So you keep Passover. Let's say you keep Passover once a year. Instead of, you at the moment you feel good, but then right after that, maybe the next Sabbath, the leader might go up there and say, well, did you really keep the Passover in spirit and in truth? Did you really mean it when you were? And then if you didn't, here's the kicker. Every year, for the majority, I've heard this sermon multiple times when the whole church would gather together and keep the Passover. And then the next day, a lot of people don't know this, but the next day they keep another feast, which is the Feast of Unleavened Bread. It's always, every year, it's the day after Passover. So I don't know how many times I heard after the whole church would keep the Passover, the following day would be the Feast of Unleavened Bread. And when always on the Passover, hundreds of people attend. That seems like when the church is really focused on bringing the people to once a year celebrate the Passover. But then the next day, if the group reduces from full to a quarter of what was on the Passover day. And here's the funny thing is the leader, I've heard this multiple times. They'll be like, well, they had all the people that came, they had a misunderstanding, because unless you keep the Feast of Unleavened Bread, the Passover doesn't work. So even though they made all this effort to keep the Passover the previous day, by them not showing up to keep the other feasts, it really didn't mean anything.
There's
always more. And so this is the people that I've been thanks to God I can share this now, because like I said, it's already going to come out and be open, and like I said, I'm going to be public enemy number one. But thanks to God, man, there's been people, leaders of the church, that are now, I can say they're out. And I've talked to them, and I've even gone to Christian churches with them. And and the seed has been planted, and so I feel like we as Christians, man, we really we have to really realize that we have we have an ability that God's given us, and we have God's mercy on us that He let us know the truth. So I think that we have an obligation, to share this message with others. As like Jesus said, freely you have received, freely give. And I feel like a lot of these members that are in this church, like I can tell you from experience, some of these members that are now out, and they told me like how broken they felt being inside this church, and how I've heard so many stories of members that feel like they've been alienated from their families, and yes, gave up their future, gave up so many things, and but the most heartbreaking one is families, man. They leave their families, and they basically leave their everything behind, and they go and they follow this church, and see, I'm not because I already can see what a Church of God member is going to say is, oh, are you saying that we shouldn't leave father, mother, son or daughter for the sake of the gospel? That's not the point. The point is it a free will choice, or are you being forced to do these things? See, when you're a member of the Church of God, these things aren't optional. You have to do. So, for instance, me, it was, Edgar, you have to go, and they're not asking you. You have to go do this. You need to go lead this church over here. If you don't, in 2015, we were hearing, because we thought the end was going to come in 2015 on the Day of Atonement. We thought that it was in September 2015, the world was going to end. And so we were out, that was a time when we were establishing churches left and right. And so,
did you say 2015?
Yes, 2015. Yeah. And so in 2015, we were establishing, churches left and right. And I remember, sitting in the pews and hearing the sermons over and over. If you're not being used to establish a church or being sent out to establish a church, what are you doing? Do you really have faith? Are you really saved? So again, you never have peace while you're in the church. And one thing I always tell these members, it's funny, they tell you when you first come into the church, the spill is you're a sinner, you try to kill God in heaven, you're not saved, you need to keep the Passover. If you keep the Passover, you're forgiven of your sins, you feel of God, you're saved, you're good. You're so good. If you keep the Passover, you're good, you're saved. You can sleep like a baby tonight because you're going to heaven. But what happens is, after you keep Passover, you go back for another study. Now, it went from you being saved after keeping Passover. Yeah, well, you kept Passover, that's good. But did you know you need to keep the Sabbath? The Sabbath is on Saturday, and if you don't keep the Sabbath, you don't have a sign between you and God. And so Matthew 7:21 says, God will tell you He never knew you because you don't have that sign. So, yeah, it's fine that you kept the Passover, but now you got to keep the Sabbath. So now what do the members do? They keep the Sabbath as well. So now, we're good, we're saved, we kept the Sabbath, we kept the Passover, we're good. No. Not so fast. Now that you kept the Sabbath, did you know that you got to tithe? Oh, if you don't tithe, you're not connected to Melchizedek. You're not connected. You don't believe the promise of the Passover. You don't really believe the things that you did. So now if you don't tithe, now you're not saved. So now you're not just keeping Passover, you're not just keeping Sabbath, now you're tithing too. So you're good now. No way. Oh, you're doing all that good. But are you preaching every day? Oh, you're not preaching every day? Oh, brother, if you're not preaching every day, you're not. If you're not bearing fruit, you're a wicked, lazy servant. And according to that parable, you cannot be saved because you're gonna be thrown out. You're gonna be punished. Right? And so it turns from doing one thing and you're good to doing another and another, and it just keeps adding on and adding on and adding on until it consumes you. And it's never enough. It's never enough. You never feel, even after doing all these things, you never feel peace. You never feel peace because it's not designed to make you feel peace. It's always designed to.
It's designed to keep you in the cycle.
Exactly. And so that's why when I'm reading the New Testament now and I see the apostles say there's freedom in Christ, before when I was in, I didn't understand what that meant. I was just like, kind of scratching my head. What do they mean by that? But now that I'm out, I realize there is freedom in Christ. Like it's not, God's love is not conditional like how it is in the Church of God or any of these groups. You know, these groups, they focus so much on and I think honestly that's one of the reasons why a lot of people, you know, I hate to say this, but I feel like a lot of people, in my opinion, this is why a lot of people go to, you know, these kind of churches, is because the way they see it is they don't have to change this. As long as they keep doing the works of the law, then they can justify themselves and they think they're going to be good. You know, well, I can sin, not change my heart, but as long as I show up on Passover once a year, I'll be good. As long as I'm tithing, as long as I'm keeping the Sabbath, as long as I'm doing all these things, I'm good. But look at the example in the Bible with the Pharisees and Sadducees. Jesus looked at them and saw right through them. Outwardly, they were perfect, flawless, keeping the laws, knew the Bible like the back of their hands. But Jesus said to them, inside, you're dead. Inside, you're full of dead men's bones. And he said, you're hypocrites. And those are strong words, you know. And so when I think of those things, I think of myself. I think of what I was doing for all those years, and thinking, you know, about, you know, well, as long as I'm doing this, and, you know, I got to do more, and I got to do all these different things, and even after doing those things again and again, you never feel that peace. You never feel that you're good, and that's the thing, is like, even when you look at the apostles in the New Testament, they never doubted their faith. They never, well, if I don't come to Jerusalem to keep this Passover, I might not make it. Or did I really keep it in spirit and truth? Or
well, sorry to cut you off, but I think that's like what all this makes me think of is the whole concept of the Sabbath that is so emphasized by the WMSCOG, but the whole point of the Sabbath, it's this idea of rest, right? And not just a physical rest like you get to sleep in on Saturdays or something, but what I get from the concept of the Sabbath that you see all throughout the Bible is it seems like it's conveying this idea of like a inward rest, like this inward peace. And then it's interesting that, you know, in Hebrews it talks about how you know, there remains a Sabbath rest for the people of God, and that Jesus is the Sabbath. And so it seems like you can contrast like the WMSCOG with what the New Testament seems to talk about what the gospel is and what it's not. And it all comes down to, in so many ways, this concept of Sabbath, and that the gospel that you see in the Bible, it does seem to give this peace. Like it should give an inward peace and like a peace of mind, you know, like Jesus says, come to me, all you who are weary and heavy laden, and I will give you rest. I will give you restfulness. You will have, you know, a calm inside of you. And you know, every bit of evidence I see tells me that the WMSCOG produces the exact opposite. Whatever gospel the WMSCOG is preaching, it's the exact opposite of that. It does not produce in any way rest, you know, especially, you know, on their Sabbath days. So many members tell me that their Saturdays were the most unrestful, stressful day of the week, which is just so incredibly ironic to me. But yeah, I do think it's really intriguing, I guess, to hear you articulate that difference between when you were operating under this certain concept of what the gospel was, and it was all about you, right? It's all about what you were able to do, whether you're able to put in enough work, enough effort. It's all about your ability to pull yourself up by your own bootstraps, sort of idea. And as you're communicating, that did not give you any sort of inward peace. So yeah, that's huge, I think.
Yeah, man, and again, like even with the points that you're bringing up about like the Sabbath, like that is a very, very important point that they hammer it into you. You gotta be there for the Sabbath, and it's not just this is what they tell you when you're studying the Sabbath day. We have 3 services, and you should you have to really keep all 3, because did God say give me a Sabbath hour? Did God say give 2 Sabbath hours? He said the Sabbath day, keep the Sabbath day holy. So, you have to be there all day from morning till night. Sometimes we would leave there, midnight or past midnight, and there was a point where I was living inside the church, and maybe we can get into that another time. But, even when I'm looking at the Sabbath, when I'm looking at all these laws, because I already know what as a former member, especially someone that I used to love to combat with people that would bring up points that I'm bringing up now. I could already think of what's going on in their mind, spinning 100 miles per hour. They're like, so what are you saying? You're all of a sudden now advocating Sunday? Now are you did you all of a sudden become a pagan, and now you're saying that Sabbath is wrong? No. This is my point. I'm not here to tell you that Sabbath is wrong, Sabbath is right, that Saturday is not the Sabbath day, that Sunday. My point is not that. My point is this. Does the Bible say Sabbath is needed for salvation? That's my point. And whether or not I agree physically that the Sabbath is on Saturday, it was never changed.
Right.
That's not the point. That's not the point of the gospel. That's not what the apostles didn't focus on. That the apostles worship God every day. The apostles were living for Christ every single day. They had rest in Christ every single day. So when I hear people say, well, so are you saying the Passover is wrong? Are you saying this is wrong? Are you saying that? No, I'm not saying that it's wrong. Those things were instituted because the Bible says in Galatians chapter 3 that the law was put in place to lead you to Christ. My question to the Church of God members is this, or anyone that follows a legalistic system, is if the Bible says that the law was put in place to lead you to Christ, so my question is, once it led you to Christ, did Christ somehow, his purpose was to lead us back to another law? Because the Bible said the law was put in place to lead us to Christ, not the other way around. Christ wasn't put in place to lead us to the law. But see, that's what a lot of these churches do is, well, yeah, the law is good. It led us to Christ, but Christ led us back to another law that we should be keeping now. Well, if that was the case, Jesus wouldn't have said on the cross, it is done. And so, yeah, Galatians chapter 3, verse 24. So the law was our guardian until Christ came that we might be justified by faith. Yeah, man, it's crazy because, like I said, I must have read this verse 1,000 times and never really got the gist of it, didn't try to understand, and like now I'm rereading the Bible with a, open heart and mind. I'm just seeing so many things, like even reading the book of Galatians over and over again, and like seeing, like reading it from the beginning again. Go back to members, please read the books from the beginning. There was no verses in back in the day before they canonized the Bible. There was no verse. These were scrolls. They were reading them as stories.
Don't just pick up Galatians and skip to chapter 4, verse 26, and interpret that to talk about and teach a mother God, and then assume that you have some sort of actual truth there about what that was trying to say. That's so good. Read it from the beginning.
And another thing that really helped me out is one of my principles nowadays is to if I want to lean to believe a certain belief that somebody is telling me, this is how I'm gonna judge it. Is it has to stand up to all of Scripture. In other words, I can't just take one verse and have someone interpret one a certain way and then just believe a whole doctrine based off of one or two verses. If those verses are twisted to mean a certain way that the individual is trying to get you to believe that they're intended to be read, the whole Bible has to agree with that, not just these two verses. Because see, a lot of these groups, they'll take a verse and they'll twist it, and they say this is what this means, and you just have to take our word for it. But when you take that verse and you match it up to the rest of the scriptures, 9 times out of 10 it doesn't hold water. It's not even close to what they're telling you that it means. Right. And I've heard some of your previous work that you've been doing with in some of your videos, and it, you brought up of what is it? Oh man, it just slipped my mind. It's about them twisting twisting the scriptures pretty much, and but anyway, I kind of lost my train of thought. I'm sorry, but
no, you're good.
Before I forget, I want to mention one thing about, again, going back to talking about Apollos, and we were talking about earlier, not being scared to share the message, and why this church always does things in secluded, never out in public. And I want to read the preface of this book written by Aung San Hong. And it says here I'll let you get it. And the preface, let me know when you're there, Jordan.
Yep, got it.
So here, let's just start from the beginning. It says, this book is about the last secrets of God, which have been hidden only for the last remnant, as it is written in Malachi chapter 4, verse 5-6, the last chapter of the Old Testament. See, I will send you the prophet Elijah before the great and dreadful day of the Lord comes. He will turn the hearts of fathers to their children, the hearts of the children to their fathers. And in Amos 3:7, surely the sovereign Lord does nothing without revealing his plan secret to his servants the prophets. Now the time has come, and the everlasting kingdom of God is near. So all the secrets sealed in the Bible must be revealed. What is the order of Melchizedek, and what does the history of King David represent? Will Jesus come with fire to judge at once, or will he appear in the flesh to testify about the truth and then come as a judge on the last day? All of these considerations should not be taken lightly. Whoever thirsts for the truth needs to study this book. This book is worthy to be read not only by general believers, but also by pastors and professors and theological schools. So when you read this, he's giving you an invitation. He's saying this book is worthy. This truth is worthy to be examined carefully, publicly, by pastors, theologians, anyone. So why aren't they doing that? And again, it feels like Aung San Hong felt a certain way about his beliefs, but the church is not consistent with
which is why we've said a lot, and I think it's so true that if you believe Aung San Hong's words and teachings, you can't believe the World Mission Society Church of God. You can't believe both of them at the same time, because they are contradicting each other left and right.
Yeah, 100%, man. It's crazy. Like, even how you said, like, I really feel that if he was alive right now, man, like they'd be probably suing each other left and right now, because they've taken out, and that's the crazy thing is, I've heard you guys mention in the videos before, but it's so true about how they victimize Aung San Hong and Zhang Gyoja. They make you feel so bad with these videos, and I remember the videos, man. Like, they got someone playing Aung San Hong, and he's got like this wood, this 2x4, this big old piece of wood over his shoulders with stones on each side, and got fake blood on his shoulders and like a cloth, and they're like, man, he's suffering, breaking rocks for you, and all these all this work that he's doing, and he's working so hard, and he doesn't even buy food with his money, good food. He just porridge and that's all he eats, because he's saving up his money to buy ink to write the books of truth to save you. But in my head, I'm like, okay, so he's doing all this to buy ink to write the books of truth. Then you wait for him to die and take half his books away. That makes no sense. So how do you want me to feel? You want me to feel sorry for the guy because he's
because of how important these books are. Then you're removing 3 chapters. This book had, I think it was right. The Green Book had 3 chapters removed from it. So. Yeah, obviously his writings aren't as important to you as you're making them out. Right,
and I mean they took full books away. I mean look at the books that are not available to us, and they took the whole. So I don't understand, if it's so valuable and he wrote it, why don't we have the opportunity to see it? What are you hiding? And again, if it's God's word. Why aren't we able? If he went through the trouble to write it, why aren't we allowed to read it? And it's easy to brush those things under the rug, as a member. But these are things that really should make you think. And another thing is, if he had a problem with them taking away his books and changing and altering them, why did they wait till he died to do all those things?